All right, let me start by welcoming everybody to the Arlington County Police Department's headquarters. My name is Dustin Sternbeck. I'm the Public Information Officer for Arlington County Police. In just a moment, Chief Scott will be making a statement in regards to a memo titled Proactivity Expectations 2012 that has been brought to public attention in the last 24 hours. Following his statement, Chief Scott will answer any and all questions that you may have. Chief?
Thank you, Russ. Hi, everyone. I'm Doug Scott. I'm the Chief of Police here in Arlington. I do want to make a brief statement, and I'll certainly entertain any questions that you have. The news story that's been broadcast started last evening and into today has identified that there is citizen or even resident confusion concerning ticket quotas here in Arlington, and I want to address that issue. This morning, I rescinded the Proactivity Guideline memo issued by patrol commanders earlier this month because it has created confusion. There is no month-to-month or day-to-day numeric quota system for our officers, and I want to be emphatic about that. I do feel that most employers have performance expectations for their employees. I would expect that your producers have performance expectations about stories that you do. And I do believe that the public realizes that it's reasonable for us to have performance expectations for our officers. However, citing specific squad averages, benchmarks, or targets leads to confusion about quotas. The mere suggestion of a quota system in a police department damages or sullies the professional reputation of the agency, and I take that very seriously. We take great pride here in Arlington in our professional reputation, and we have great support from the community. So I wanted to take the time this morning to get out in front of this issue because my command staff and I take it very seriously, and the county leadership also takes it very seriously. I want to inform the public through you that we take this issue seriously. We do not have quotas, and we do not want there to be any confusion with our officers, with the public, that we have numeric expectations and value quantity over quality, because we simply do not. And with that, I will take your questions.
Chief Scott, we talked to two police officers yesterday who said that they think that there's a quota system. Police officers in your department. Is there confusion in your own ranks?
Well, clearly, if you found two officers, we have 360 officers. If you found two officers that said they believe it, then there is confusion among our ranks. And I'm hopeful that the memorandum that I'm issuing this morning eliminates that confusion.
What about the part of the memo that says the officers will be disciplined if they don't meet those standards?
Yeah, I think that was a mistake, and that's part of the reason why I'm rescinding that memo. I can tell you, I've been a chief of police for almost 15 years in 3 different departments. I've never advocated quotas. I've never, ever disciplined an officer because they didn't hit a numeric number for a monthly arrest total. And even the perception that that exists bothers me.
Where did the memo come from? Could you talk a little bit about how it evolved?
Sure. It evolved from a discussion between patrol supervisors and patrol officers, and that led to a discussion with patrol commanders about what are your expectations. I think it is reasonable for officers to say, what do you expect of me, month to month, day to day? And so through that discussion, they came up with the memorandum, and I think in hindsight, they understand there was a better way to communicate that.
So you're saying there is nobody checking the numbers to make sure officers have a certain amount of arrests, citations, parking tickets?
No, I think that's better to be a one-on-one situation. If you have an officer who's underperforming consistently, then a supervisor needs to address that. I think the public expects our officers to go out there every day and do their job. I expect them to go out there every day and do their job. But to establish, benchmark averages and totals and simply state, if you don't hit this number, I saw your story yesterday, and I saw a person say, yeah, I think they go out at the end of the month and crank up the numbers. I would expect that that not happens here in Arlington. I think that goes against our professional image, and I don't want our officers doing it. Other questions?
When you saw the memo, as
Yes.
somebody, and obviously anybody who looks at it would think, okay, it looks like a quota system. What were you thinking?
I saw the memo yesterday for the first time.
When you saw it, did you have the same reaction?
I had a similar reaction when I saw it, and I discussed it with staff, and I thought it was important to get out there as early as today and resend the memo.
Anybody going to be disciplined as a result of that?
Pardon?
Anyone going to be disciplined as a result of that?
No. I think it was a mistake. I think the intent in the memorandum was to provide, some guidelines. It was not an intent to threaten officers to hit a number, an arbitrary number.
We talked to a number of citizens who assumed that there was a quota system. As you saw, they said that they thought police officers were giving more tickets at the end of the month. And a few people didn't really mind. A few
Right.
people thought it was a good thing. What's so bad about a quota system? It's not illegal in Virginia. Maryland it is, but what is so bad? Some people think it's okay.
I think when you put a number on it, you put unreasonable expectations. For example, there could be many factors over the course of a month that might influence how many arrests or tickets an officer might write. They may have training, they may have court, they may have, calls for service that have taken them out of service for the entire day. So if you get to the end of the month and you say, my arbitrary number is 25 or 30 tickets a month and I only have 10, and I'm going to get in trouble if I don't have 25 or 30, then at the end of the month, they may go out simply looking for volume versus quality. And so I want the message to be to our officers is the emphasis here is quality, not volume. And, we do expect officers to make arrests and write tickets and do enforcement actions each and every day, but we don't want to put an arbitrary number on it.
How about police officers' discretion? How important is that?
I think it's absolutely important. The officer can evaluate each of their contacts with the citizen, and they make the decision whether or not they're going to let somebody go with a verbal warning, whether or not they're going to write them a written warning, or whether or not they're going to actually issue a summons. And, police commanders are very careful not to try to step on an individual officer's discretion.
You said there was no monthly guidelines. Is there going to be an annual one?
No, I would be against an annual one as well. It could go right down to daily, monthly, annual, but we do expect that officers go out there and have something to show for their daily activity on a regular basis. So, if you ask me, do we expect our officers to make arrests, write traffic tickets, handle field investigation reports, investigate accidents, the answer is yes. When I looked at the numbers on the proactivity guidelines, I wasn't alarmed by them. Those numbers really shouldn't be hard to hit. For example, if an officer if they worked 15 days a month and they investigated accidents on every one of those days, and probably 95% of the cases I handled as a police officer back in the day when I actually did that, I wrote a ticket because I found somebody at fault and I charged them appropriately. So writing 15 to 30 traffic tickets a month, based upon the amount of unobligated time an officer has, is really not a difficult thing to do.
Could I ask you this, since you were unaware of this memo, could you be unaware of officers who might be in the process of being disciplined or have been disciplined
No,
for not meeting these numbers?
No, because the discipline ultimately rolls across my desk. So I can't recall of any time where an officer has been disciplined solely because they didn't hit what was determined to be a squad average at the end of the month.
You talk to the officers.
Yes. Yes, they're embarrassed by the fact that this story has kind of gone viral, and that it is in a way, sullied the professional reputation of the department, and they're in full support of rescinding the memo and clarifying any confusion both inside the agency and outside the agency.
You sent a new memo this morning,
Yes.
and can you talk more about what that said?
Dustin has a copy of that memo and he'll provide it to you. It basically says that based upon the news reports and the attention that this has gained, I have, to eliminate any confusion, I've rescinded the memo, and I wanted to make it clear within the organization that quotas are not tolerated nor expected in this agency.
What about a memo that went out a year ago by Deputy Chief Michael Dunn?
Right.
That talks about checking the county box instead of the state box. Is that
Right.
common practice, or does that imply also an emphasis on making money instead of just policing?
Yeah, that was about a year ago, and actually it was the result of the budget 2 years ago. When it was pointed out to us in the budget, county revenue is not reflected in the police department budget, and I think that's important to note. But it was pointed out to us in the budget discussions that revenue as a result of traffic arrest was down in the county. And when we investigated that, we found that officers were primarily charging their traffic violations under state code. And the reason for that was it was their belief that somebody charged under county code would not have the ability to prepay the fine. Therefore, if we wrote you a ticket for running a red light, under state code, you could prepay the fine and not have to come to court. If we wrote it under county code, you had to come to court. And so through investigating that, we learned that there's only a couple of county codes that require people to come to court. And obviously, most jurisdictions all across Virginia have the option of charging county code versus state code. That memo was intended to clarify that and directed officers the proper box to check on a summons so that, you know, that revenue generated by an Arlington County officer could come back to Arlington County and benefit the citizens of the county, because the county does offset the cost of, you know, running the court system, and obviously we have a police department, but it does not come directly to us, and we're not trying to just generate revenue for the police department. I hope that clears that up. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
As Chief Scott referred to, I do have copies of the original memorandum that was sent out or made public, as well as the new one that was sent this morning.